Welcome back to another episode of Burn the Ship. Thank you, Sherry, for being here today. This is the podcast where we help entrepreneurs go all in on their business by connecting them with professionals that can help them do just that. I have a new friend here, really unique experience as far as what got her into business and what's really helped her develop her why. So, without stealing any of your thunder, Sherry, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Sherry Anshara, and in the medical world, I'm known as a medical intuitive. In the business world, corporate world, I'm known as an intuitive business coach. In the real world, I'm just a belief system buster so that we can do and be and create what it is that we would love to do that's in our heart, but that is in our intention. So, really, I would say that's probably my best description, but it's hard to put that on a business card.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's hard to bottle it up sometimes. Tell me a little bit about your story. I know you have a pretty unique story that's kind of led you to doing what you're doing now. Explain a little about it to us, to the people that don't know.
Well, I would have to say I always have been an entrepreneur at heart. And I had two older brothers that were 9 and 11 years older than me. And they were entrepreneurs from the get go and went into business in their early 20s and became millionaires. And so I was in awe of them. And they included their families even in their business. But they went all out. I mean, they absolutely trusted what they did. And they had many different types of businesses and eventually became millionaires. But it wasn't really about the million. It was really about doing what it is that they believed in. And so, as an entrepreneur, I had my first job at 12. Isn't that funny? I,
Wow.
I just couldn't wait to get to work. And yes, it was great about money. I can say I was the best dressed kid in school. I kid you not. But it was the idea of accomplishment. And when I was 15, I went to work with one of my brothers, and people thought, well, that's a piece of cake. Believe me, it was not a piece of cake. But I learned a lot about how business worked, whatever it is, like the system, like when it comes in or goes out or what you do. And so I would say having that entrepreneurial spirit that I watched in my brothers made that difference for me.
Sure. So, what was that initial experience that got you to where, hey, I have a story, I have a message that I want to tell?
Okay, well, what I do now for the last 30 some years is in 1991, I was in the corporate world and I was doing very, very well and, had all the accoutrements that, beautiful home and I was single and I had accomplished a lot. And I had this accident and I actually had a near death experience. But I had a broken neck and a broken back and a smashed head and a brain out of place, which we didn't even know my brain was out of place. And so I listened to predictions. And don't we sometimes have predictions from other people about ourselves,
Sure.
even kids about you can't do this or you can't do that? And so it just didn't feel correct to me. It just didn't. And while I was laying in the hospital with these dire predictions, I really connected to myself, which I teach now and for over 30 years. And in that connection, two words came up to me, and it was called cellular memory, which I did not know at that time, but it changed my life. So, as an entrepreneur, I actually lost everything. I lost everything I had. Believe me, I was doing pretty darn good. And I came to Arizona in 1997. I really didn't know anybody. It was really down to about 50 bucks, I kid you not. And so but I had something inside of me that said, you know what I've learned from my own self, I actually could teach others, whether it's personal or professional, it's the same. And that we have this incredible intelligence in our body. And part of that intelligence is led through how we create our lives. But there was a difference. If we were emotional about stuff, we will talk ourselves out of stuff. If we were very clear, no matter what anybody said, we could do it. And that was one of I would say, the biggest, um, I don't want to call it a lesson, but the most profound information that that came to me. And from that began the change from 1991. And
Sure.
I'm so grateful.
So describe to me that process that took place from you coining that term cellular memory to that being something that is like widely acknowledged by the scientific community.
Yeah, and it wasn't then. They told
Right.
me I was they absolutely told me I was crazy.
Right.
But how many of your audience that are entrepreneurs that had an idea about something and were told they were crazy?
A lot of them, I'm sure. All of them.
Exactly. And that's why I can relate to them. And that's why I love working with entrepreneurs to get them through those blocks, because I call block is be the lock. Let's
Mhm.
unlock where that came from. And as I began to write about it and then eventually talk about it and then teach about it, um, I was told I was nuts. But a few years later, quite a few years later, plant transplants happened. Transplants. And the transplant patients, and it was in JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association, that people were beginning to have memory of their donors, organs, especially this caviar and champagne lady got the heart of a beer guzzling, beer drinking, pizza eating motorcycle guy. And she began to love beer and pizza, much to the chagrin of her family,
Right.
and went. But the fact is, I said, that's it. I've been right all along. And it's not about being right or wrong, it's more about being correct. So I got out of that genre of right and wrong into what is correct. And that's what I give and guide entrepreneurs is follow what is correct for you, what feels. This is not woo woo or, silly, but it's really that feeling that drives your creativity. And and actually have a process of how you take something from creation to actualization. And it works.
Can you describe that process to us and what it's called?
Okay, it's called I call it the Godness within you. I'm not getting religious
Mhm.
here at all, but it's called how you create your life consciously. And one is when you're creating something, and I'll give you an idea. And I teach this in my business classes even. So here's a pencil. Let's just pretend this pencil was never created. Let's just pretend this first time, okay?
Mhm.
And so I have an idea to create this pencil. And I form a template using my right computer brain. It works this way. And by the way, I was studied at the University of Arizona in 2002. How many years ago was that? And they said I have one of the most organized brains and that I was a genius. And I burst out laughing and said, "Hey, my brain's out of place. Thank you." And they laughed. Isn't that perfect? So this applies to everything. I have clients that are billionaires, millionaires, and some that don't have a thing that are starting out but have brilliant ideas. Okay, so here's the pencil. So now I'm organizing how this is going to look. And so I'm going to implement it. I'm going to use my body to implement it. So I'm going to look for wood. I have to have, this rubber tip, the metal, the printing, the packaging, the marketing. So I'm sending out purchase orders to at least 5 or 6 or maybe 7 suppliers. Don't they have employees that feed their families? You're starting the process of creating wealth. It's that simple. I kid you not. So now you get the stuff back because you implemented, you did it. You know what your schematic drawing is. You organized it in your right brain. And so now you've implemented it, and now the products come back to you. So now through your left brain, and you are now going to organize the manufacturing of it, the manifesting of it, and through your body, through your heart, this is not woo woo, through your hands, you actualize it. And the Hebrew alphabet, it's the word Yahweh, God. It's the 4 steps to create, implement, manifest, and actualize what it is you're creating. And now I have a pencil. So I can sell it wholesale or retail. I can sell it Cherry's Pencils or Us or whatever I'd like to call it. And I can sell it to school systems or whatever. So it's not just the pencil, it's the idea of anything you create. The same with the book.
Okay.
I was actually years ago asked to write this ebook on depression because that's one of my specialties to get people off of drugs and out of depression. And there's a lot of that in the corporate world and the business world because people don't believe in themselves. But anyway, he asked me to write an outline. So I sat there and I was getting bored by the minute. And I said, I know what this is about. Write it, create it, and implement it, manifest it. And so on my computer, I just sat there and in 3.5 hours, I had an entire ebook written
Wow.
because it came from me, of my
Wow.
knowledge. And that's what entrepreneurs have. They have an incredible knowledge within them, but they have to believe in themselves and not listen to the naysayers. Do
Sure.
not listen to the naysayers.
How does that relate to when you used the phrase tools of the Anshara method?
I have steps.
Okay.
And one of my favorite steps, actually, one of my clients made a hat for me that says NEO, non emotional observer. When you become the observer non emotionally and you are able to observe everything, guess what? You get the facts. When you get the facts, then you know what to do, like creating the pencil. You know that the facts are wood or lead or whatever it is. So that is the first tool I teach everyone, even in their relationships. I came out of the corporate world. I had been in business for myself for many years. I was in the corporate world. In the 80s, I became VP of marketing of a national company without a college degree. I didn't know that I couldn't do that. The opportunity presented itself. Way back when I turned 30, I told my mother and my sister that I was going to learn how to fly an airplane. And they said, "Oh, you're too old and you're a girl." I said, "Oh, okay, fine." And I bought one. And so people said, "Well, how do you buy an airplane?" I don't know. How do you buy a car? How do you buy anything? If you don't have all the money, you give the bank so much money, and then once a month you get a bill, and you better afford it, or you
Oh
won't
yeah.
have it.
Oh
It,
yeah.
it it's really, we make it too complicated, and we're looking for validation. This is another key. Is I teach people how to validate themselves. Now, it's great when you get validation. It's wonderful. But sometimes the people that are closest to you, just like my mother and sister said, "Well, you can't fly an airplane." Well, because that wasn't part of their paradigm or idea.
Right. Right. That makes a lot of sense. So when you say those steps, what is that process like when you work with one of your clients? Like how do you kind of walk them down that path?
Okay, well, first, it's for them to assist me to comprehend what it is their objective. So it's not that we're getting in the future, because one of my keys is stay out of the outcome so the income comes in. And the income is not necessarily money, it's results. So let's say that next January, someone is going to start a business. Great, we already know that. It could be January 1st, it could be January 10th, it could be December 28th. It doesn't matter. But we have a timeline, correct? We got a timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So now that is our objective. That's our intention. But now we got to get right here. So a lot of people get in the future. They get, "Well, I'm going to do this when." No, it's not when. We've already set the date. Now let's not even consider the date. It's not that we're not thinking about it. I teach people not to think. That's another tool to focus, because sometimes when we thinky, we talk ourselves out of it.
Right.
So now we're in the moment. And what are the steps? What are the steps to open the doors or do online or whatever it is? It doesn't matter what it is, it's the same steps. But you have to be really clear about what the results you're looking. And it can be changed and flexible, but you have to know the core of what it is that you would like to accomplish. And then each day, take the next, it's like writing a book. You can't write the whole book. You might have the whole idea, but you still have to take it a chapter at a time. So a month could be the chapter, or a week. And what you're doing are taking very proactive, very deliberate steps to get there. And you can't allow yourself to be distracted.
For sure. For sure. One of the most unique things I found when we first connected and kind of doing my research was that phrase non-emotional observer. Can you tell us like that seems to be like a unique skill that you saw the benefit of and kind of saw the efficiency of having that kind of led you to be able to make better decisions within that corporate world. Can you describe to us those guidelines that make you a non-emotional observer and what we should be looking out for to make sure that we're kind of separating our emotions from what we're observing?
Not taking it personal.
Right.
The minute you take something personal, you're getting emotional because I teach about profiles, behaviors, and roles. Way back in the corporate world, when I first started doing sales training, you, people are going to faint here. My boss asked because he said, you have to have a quota. Okay, fine. Don't tell me the quota. I know that there's a quota, but let me just do what I do. And I would surpass my quota all the time. And he said, how do you do this? So he said, I would like you to do some sales training. I said, great. And I walked in and I had the sales manual in my hand and I threw it in the trash can. Can you imagine my boss I thought was going to faint at the mouth? Now this is way back when. And he went like, what is going on? I'm going, it's okay. And so I said, you asked me to do this. So I sat down with everybody. I didn't stay up there at the head, but I said, I'm going to talk to all of you. I said, what happens when you develop a relationship? There's an interest and there's a connection. And guess what? This is way back when. You didn't do that. You did Socratic, you repeat what somebody said. As I said, if I hear anybody on my sales team asking people, is this exactly what you said? I'm going to go sew their mouth shut. That's ridiculous. I mean, it's an insult to the person you're talking to.
Oh
And
man.
one of the skills in that non-emotional observer is listening, not hearing through your old paradigm of what you think they said instead of what did they really say, and started to develop relationships. I mean, real relationships. So this will make you laugh. So I know it works. So I was with this company and it was inside sales. They had never sent an inside salesperson out ever, not ever, ever, ever. Well, guess what happened with me?
They
They
sent you
sent me
out.
out. And the big boss came and my boss came. But this is hilarious. So I'm in Troy, Michigan at the time, and then we flew to Pittsburgh. We walk in the lobby, and like they would do signs back then,
Hmm.
here's Sherry, welcome. They didn't even have my bosses from the big boss. And it's not like I didn't tell them. And I went, oh my God, this is really good. I already points to because guess who developed the relationship with them?
You.
Exactly, even the gatekeeper. And what I did was I listened to things they said, like they like I don't know chocolate chip cookies. I'm making this up at the moment, or movie tickets or whatever. And so I would have our marketing department who would, like to send out our mugs and pads of paper and pencil with them. I didn't do that. I listened to what it is, and that made a hit. Was I buying them? I don't know, but I was making a connection, and then we could talk about stuff like that. And when I would call, I always got through.
I love that.
Isn't that funny? And
Yeah.
also on my voicemail, this was way back when, this was just a marketing tool at the time. I had a book called Every Day is a Holiday, and every day I would change my voicemail to whatever the holiday was. And that became something that people would like to call me that I didn't always have to call them.
Right.
And,
Right.
and it just is developing that relationship. So that's really what makes business go around, the world of business go around is relationships. But the skill of listening, and as Neo, non emotional observer, you will learn so much more about your clients, about how expanding your business. And you know what? Then guess what happens? I mean, when I came to Arizona, I didn't really know anyone, but through word of mouth and through I was using these same principles, even though it was completely different, sort of in the alternative healthcare, outside the box of healthcare, or whatever it is. And I have built an amazing reputation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love how all of those kind of pointing out the traits that you need to really be that non-emotional observer. I love how you look at that from so many different lenses because you look at it from a salesperson level, a marketing department level, a C level. You look at it in every area in these organizations where you can say, how do we piece together the mode of thinking in all of these people that we need to inspire the confidence and the results that we look at. That I think is what's missing in a lot of A lot of the people that are in the coaching world or the organization world or in that, fractional C-level world is that they only wear their one hat. They look at everything else through a jaded lens from their salesperson role or from their C-level role or from their venture capital role or whatever that is. So I think it's very, very interesting that your methodology and your thought process meshes so many of those different departments.
It does, because when we get down to it, we're people.
100%.
And that's it. And sometimes I do believe in a lot of businesses that that person aspect of gets missed. I know that when I was in the corporate world, I brought a completely different genre to it. And it's quite spectacular. And if you stay non-emotional, if you stay more connected to yourself, then it's easier to connect to others. This is not woo. This is just practical applications uh, of how the systems work.
Right.
And you know what? And people know, they feel the difference. This is not woo woo again. They feel the difference. They know when you're being genuine. And so I built everything from word of mouth because I came here with and I had to start all over again. And that's how it built. And I
Wow.
would go out to communities and talk to them and believe me, it was a challenge with that fact. And now I have many clients that are physicians
Wow.
and nurses or whatever. And so I've been in operating rooms, I've been in delivery rooms because the family asked me, and the doctors did not object at all.
Wow. That's really, really unique. That's
It
really,
is very unique,
it's really
and I'm
unique.
very honored that that happened.
You should. Well, it's it's the things that you see as fruit of the relationships that you built. And my business is the same thing. I'm in the payment processing world where nobody really cares who's their credit card processor. Everybody brings X amount of value or content, and we really try to breach those walls with, different types of ammo. We'll help you get business. We'll, all this technology, customer service, all the things that we already innately do in our business are just enhanced by the developed network and these other services to the community that we try our best to kind of put out there. So, I find a lot of synergy in what you're saying in the way that my company thinks, because us as salespeople a lot of times have to wear different roles. We have to wear our customer service hat sometimes. Sometimes we have to represent the business on a higher level when we have to fill in somebody else's shoes. So it's very unique. I wanted to ask you, if we have people out there in the audience that are looking to get a hold of you and have a further conversation, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, they can go to my website. It's Sherry Anshara, Sherry, Anshara, ANSHARA.com. And if you do go to sherryanshara.com, sign up for my newsletters. I have fabulous blogs, but I also have a free ebook called Getting Your Answers in 10 Minutes. It's only 17 pages, but it outlines many of these steps. And they can call me. I'm in Arizona on Mountain Standard Time, part of the year, and Pacific is the other
Mm-hmm.
part. I'm at 480-609-0874. And I always tell everybody, if I don't answer, just let me know sometimes. I have clients all over the world. I have them in all different time zones. And so I would love to work with you. And if you sign up on my website, you can get a 10-minute, 20-minute, whatever it is, free consultation. Because most of the time, those hiccups that you have is because of some belief system that someone said to you a long time ago. And
Sure.
it could even be about business. So you can't let somebody's limitation limit you.
Absolutely. So the last question I have is, this podcast is called Burn the Ship. Our goal is to really talk to people about going all in on your business and what that experience is like. Can you sum up in a few words what it was like to go all in on your own business and what you would say to the people in the audience that are thinking about making that change for themselves?
Only listen to yourself and trust yourself implicitly. And believe me, it's challenging. I can tell you that, especially with some of the physicality issues that I had. But I trusted that I knew that I had something to share with people that would benefit their life. And that's what being an entrepreneur is, that you have something, whatever it is, whatever you're entrepreneuring in bringing to the marketplace or bringing to other people, is that what you have through what you're creating, it will make a difference in someone's life. And that's what it is that as an entrepreneur, you have that spirit to make a difference, not only in your own life, but other people's lives. And that's the best.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Sherry. I appreciate it. Our conversation today has definitely made an impact on me as well as the audience. I do believe so. It's been a pleasure to be connected with you, my friend. I hope that some of our audience reaches out with you and connect with you and bring you some value as well. If there's anything that we can do for you over here at the MP Group or Burn the Ship, please let me know. But I wanted to thank you again. You know, it's been time well spent and a message well received for young entrepreneurs, and we'll get this out as far as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Burn the ship, everybody. We'll see you guys next time.